this is the tent we're talking about. It was a large, I'm not sure the actual dimensions of it. It was a good-sized tent. One corner came out and the whole thing came down. We are told that varying reports that nobody was injured, nobody was under it. We did hear from one person who claims, oh, he was under it. He was kind of trapped under a table. But all these folks rushed out, and again, up to 10,000 were expected here, rushed out to this tent. That's when it came down. Again, there were several marshals out here, folks with marshals vests on. They're part of the union, part of the organizers, to try to keep the peace, try to keep this sort of thing from happening. Obviously, that didn't. And as you still see some skirmishes from time to time going on. The state police had moved all the way out to Capitol Avenue to try to disperse this crowd. That seemed to have worked. Now they're moving back in towards the Capitol. So again, moving back towards the west. You can see all the state troopers right there. Something they added to their gear belt as of yesterday was these riot sticks, these crowd control sticks. You can see they're moving back towards here, and you hear the crowd cheering.
Joe, this is obviously on the bubble. I mean, this is one of those situations that could just go over. I mean, do you feel like it's reaching maybe possibly a boiling point?
I don't think so, Brett. I think they've got things back under control. I think there's enough. Even-minded folks here that they seem to be trying to calm things down a little bit. You see some of the folks trying to talk with state troopers. There is still a lot of noise here. There's still a lot of protest going on, but it seems to have calmed down to the point where they're kind of backing off and letting the police do their jobs and maybe calming things down just a little bit right at this point.
Joe, there are a lot of people out there we see in these neon outfits or these pullovers, these vests. Are those peacekeepers that were out there that have come here on their own accord and as part of an organization to be able to try to keep the peace?
Brett, is that a question to me?
Yeah, I'm just asking you if those are the people that are part of that peacekeeping organization. They're not part of a police organization, right? They're just a peacekeeping group?
Yeah, our assumption, these folks you're seeing here, the folks with the vest, they have marshal on the back. Our assumption here is they're part of the right to work demonstrators, probably part of the union demonstrators that are here to try to keep the peace, try to keep this sort of thing from getting out of hand. They were some of the first here to rush this tent when it came down, and a couple of them told me everybody was okay inside. There were no injuries. That was the first report. And again, they were here before police were here. Knowing what I know about police tactics, the police decided to gather in mass and map out some sort of plan, because this is obviously a very fluid situation, and come in when they did and try to get control of the situation. That seemed to have worked. There was lag time there for maybe 3 or 4 minutes. Of course, those scenes always seem to be longer when you're in the middle of it, but they did come through this crowd. Everybody started to back off and kind of follow their orders. And now they took them all the way up to Capitol Avenue. Now state police again have gone back towards the Capitol. Obviously, they don't want to keep that uncovered either. One thing I noticed earlier, just before this happened, they brought in East Lansing police as well. Now you may think, what would East Lansing police do when you're talking about this larger group at the Capitol and the state police were involved in it? East Lansing police have a lot of experience with this sort of thing, crowd control over at Michigan State University, so that makes sense. One other thing I noticed, when the state police did come out, they did not have the riot gear on. They have those riot clubs that are used to disperse crowds that we usually don't see them. They're not standard issue in just for patrol officer or trooper on patrol. They had those, but they did not have the riot gear on, and we talked a little bit about that yesterday, the whole intimidation factor, that fine line police are walking, with keeping the police, showing a presence, but not intimidating anybody too much. So it was interesting to me to see the troopers come through here without that riot gear on, even though they were wandering into a pretty tough situation. Now, we are back. We have made our way back. That is where that tent was. You saw it earlier this morning. That's where Americans for Prosperity were. That's where their tent was set up. That is down now because of this sudden crush of people. We're back here at the Capitol. You can see back at the Capitol steps. The crowd is still very heavy through here, a very large crowd. Again, Numbers like 10,000 were thrown out. I have not heard anything from any police agency that can tell us exactly what that number is. We'll probably get that later. But the crowd has dispersed. Police agencies, state police are back around the Capitol, ringing the Capitol as they have been most of the day. It appears that things are calmed down and fairly back to normal. Rick Albin is joining me live. Rick, I don't know if word filtered in to the Capitol about what happened out here, but let me get your reaction.
Well, I was watching it live on television from our satellite truck. I had just come out of the House chamber, and at the point that I came out, nobody was aware that this was taking place out here. But what they are doing is there is continuing to debate. We don't expect any vote before noon today. We expect that those speeches will continue until sometime afternoon, and then we anticipate that there should be the vote on the first bill. Of course, there's a second bill that will have to go up there. But in the last 15 minutes or so that I've been out, there was no word coming back in. And the only way they would have it's a call of the House. So members really can't leave, and they really can't come back in if they do leave. So the only way they would know is by looking at social media or looking at websites, and a lot of them are doing just that. So they may well know what's going on in there by now. But they've been debating this now since about 10 o'clock this morning when they started 10:15. There have been a number of speeches. Most of them have been Democratic, of course, and they're very opposed. One speaker said that there would be blood if these passed, and they talked about some very dire consequences, both real physical consequences about some kind of confrontation of the workforce if you allow non-union people to come into union shops, and they also talked about the larger political issues that they're concerned about. So there's some very serious debate going on in there, but those votes, as I say, are scheduled probably shortly after 12 o'clock.
Okay, well, from what happened out here, you've been through the halls on the House side.
Right.
A lot of people in there, and what's the crowd like in there?
When I came through the crowd out there, and that was happening simultaneously, as I was coming all the way across the building and back out this side door, this was going on. In fact, I walked through the building out into one of our satellite trucks. We have two of them here, but into one of our satellite trucks, and I was looking at that video, and I said, "What is that?" And then the folks in the truck were trying to explain it to me, and so then I came out here. So, I mean, there was no connection to what was going on in there. What we were seeing in there, at least then, was the same type of organized, very vocal, but very respectful type of demonstrations in there. And again, remember, inside the Capitol, the presence of law enforcement is much more concentrated. So in there, they don't allow situations to develop very quickly, or very long, I should say. They get on them pretty quickly. So everything in there was still pretty calm when I left about 15, 20 minutes ago. But it was out here, obviously, is where this activity took place, and where I saw, just as I came out, was you were describing the strong police presence that followed up after they all gathered together and came across. So obviously there's a lot of activity. The SEIU was just marching down in front of the governor's office, and I just received that's a couple of Democratic senators, it looks like. I can see Senator Stephen Beda. I can't see who else is over there, and I don't know exactly what they're going to do. They may be coming out to speak to the crowd, or they may be going over to assist with the SEIU march that was going on. And I also got a notification from someone, and I don't know who, that there may be some type of a demonstration in front of the governor's office just about 10 minutes. So that may be part of this as well.
I guess, we've been out here all morning, and we were on the steps of the Capitol in a live report, letting folks know what was going on, when we suddenly turned and heard all the commotion out here. It is somewhat surprising to me. Maybe it shouldn't be with this large of a crowd when you've got this many people, but throughout the morning, it's been a very casual, interesting conversations with folks. You have some folks that are very passionate about this. They're talking about this, but for the most part, they've stated their case. They've told us. They've obviously hollered it to the folks up in the Capitol, but nothing like this. You didn't get a sense that anything like this might happen.
Well,
but now that's kind of changed.
As you point out, when you get this many people together and there is a lot of passion, a few people can kind of start kind of a cascade of events. We don't know what happened. I wasn't here and I didn't see it. At best I can tell, nobody was injured. It was just a matter of a tent coming down. But we can see here there's some folks have taken to the trees for a better vantage point up there. And I think in general this crowd is becoming a little more agitated, and part of that may be because it continues to grow, because because they've been out here. Some of them were here when I got here at 7 this morning. Maybe because it has been a long wait out in the cold, or maybe there is the realization, and I think most of these folks understood going into this, is that there's going to be a vote, and it's going to come relatively soon, and the vote is not going to go the way that they wanted it to go. There's no indication that Republicans have lost any of the 58 votes that they had last week when they did kind of a test vote on this over in the House. So we expect those votes will go pretty much the way they did last week, and there has to be a certain amount of frustration to bring this many people out here to speak this loudly, to express their reservations so firmly, and still see those votes go against them. That has to be frustrating.
All right, thanks, Rick. Obviously, political reporter Rick Albin on the lawn of the Capitol. I'm here as well. We're going to continue with our coverage right through that vote this afternoon. Just to recap what's been going on here, probably for the last 10-15 minutes. We were on the steps of the Capitol doing a cut-in about 11:30. Crowd continued to protest. We have obviously a very large amount of people here, but everybody was peaceful. Loud but very peaceful, getting their point across to the folks upstairs. Suddenly we heard the crowd cheer and turn to look this way being up on the Capitol lawn, more towards Capitol Avenue. There was a large tent with a bunch of, that was set up by a group supporting the right to work legislation. All of a sudden that large white tent came crashing down. We understand there have been no injuries reported. A group of marshals that we believe are part of the whole organization, of the anti-right to work organization here, rushed out, got under that tent, made sure everybody was okay. State police then came in masse. You saw it live right here on 24-Hour News 8. Get back, the chant, get back. They came in masse along with the mounted posse from the local sheriff's department here in Ingham County. They cleared the crowd out, moved as many people as they could north, south, and out to the east at Capitol Avenue. Got the crowd, seemed to get control of the crowd. And now what you're seeing now is a lot of folks gathered around that tent. There have been some skirmishes, some words exchanged, but we haven't seen any fisticuffs at this point going on here. We're continuing to monitor the situation, obviously, and still waiting for that vote in the House that Rick Albin just said probably will not come before noon. Obviously, we are monitoring that as well. Brett, I'm going to send it back to you. We'll regroup. You want to start at noon probably. We'll obviously be here live when you come back to us.